days it can be quite easy to get into the mindset that if we go in search of the best photography equipment we can find, basically expose our photographs perfectly every time, so knowing the settings on the camera and learning a few basic composition rules to make our photographs look good and stand out, that we're well on the way to making that all-important perfect photograph. If only photography was that easy. Imagine if we all did that. We all had the best photography equipment we could find, we all knew how to perfectly expose photographs in the camera, and we all knew how to compose brilliant photographs. Then chances are it would be quite the contrary. We'd all be getting very similar looking pictures. In this latest episode of our Thinking Photographically series, we're going to be concentrating on one of the things that I think is key, but often missed out when it comes to improving photography skills and making good photographers even better, as we ask the question, how observant are you? After you've watched this video, check out YouTube or Google and search for selective attention tests. Selective attention tests are based on the argument that as human beings, when we're told to concentrate on something, we concentrate on it so hard that we often miss other things going on around us. One of the most famous selective attention tests is the gorilla test, which I know sounds a bit dodgy, doesn't it? But basically, you're asked to count how many times a set of people in coloured t-shirts pass a ball between them. And in doing so, you miss somebody else in a gorilla costume walking from one side of the frame to the other and doing a little dance in front of the camera. Although that might seem obvious when I describe it, you'd be surprised at how many people actually miss it in that selective attention test. It's actually over 80%. So it goes to show that observation is not only a really key skill to have when it comes to things like photography, it's also something that we really have to work on. We could be mistaken, as I said in the introduction, that it's all about equipment, camera settings and composition. But if you can't see the photograph in the first place to be able to compose it, to judge the light so you can set the settings and use that wonderful camera equipment that you have, then you're not necessarily going to go home with that perfect photograph, because you may be concentrating on something and something else happens that you completely miss. So as I explore the wonderful area that is Timberlings Wood and try and dodge the multiple showers that keep passing through, I'm going to help you to improve your observation skills by giving you a few pointers here and there about what we can look for and activities that we can do in order to engage our brains a little bit more in terms of looking for things that work as a photograph. So the next time you're out and about with your camera, you won't miss that perfect shot. As if on cue, the latest shower has come through, and it's quite a heavy one actually, so I've come deeper into the woodland to try and find some shelter. And whilst we're under this shelter, I'll share with you my first tip when it comes to observation, which may seem like an obvious one, but it's almost so obvious that we can often forget it altogether. And that is, when you're out and about with your camera, don't forget to look around. We can be so entrenched sometimes in finding a specific subject or going to a specific location to pick up our camera and take photographs that we don't stop to look around. Turn round in 360 degrees, look up, look down, and look in every conceivable angle you can find, especially if the light's right. Because if you do that, you might just find a different vantage point or a different subject entirely that captures your attention and really makes a fantastic photograph. Although the rain continues to pour down, I keep seeing some glimpses of brightness. I'm sure there must be a rainbow somewhere that I can't actually see because of all of these trees that I'm sheltering under. But my second tip revolves around light. Obviously, without light, photography wouldn't exist. Even on the darkest of nights, we still can take photographs, albeit very long exposures, because of light from the moon, the stars, or maybe ambient light from towns and cities around us. So light is always there, even if we don't necessarily think it is. And I always believe in photography that there's no such thing as good or bad light. It's just how, as photographers, we deal with that light and how we observe it in order to get the best out of it. So even in flat light, make sure that you look how it sits on your subject and how you can find the best angle on that subject to make it stand out. If you're in harsh light, look at how the shadows fall from the subject. Are they falling into or out of the frame? Do they formulate part of the subject matter? Is the shadow a subject itself? So when you're out and about with the camera, always have light at the back of your mind, and that will help you to be A, more observant, and B, help you to organise the frame of your photographs a lot better with that light in mind. I'm fighting with these trees, which I'm still keeping shelter under because the rain continues to fall. In fact, those glimpses of light that I saw earlier on seem to have gone again, so let's stay here for now, shall we? The next tip that I'd like to give you in terms of observation is all about shape. Now, shape is vitally important when it comes to A, framing your photographs, and B, observing the world around you, which of course this video is all about. Now, different shapes can mean different things or represent different things within your photographs. So, for example, triangular shapes can often represent some kind of dynamism or movement. Imagine you've got a landscape photograph of a mountain which is quite pointy at the side of a beach which you've got waves crashing in on. If you formulate that frame so you've got the triangle of the mountain itself and the beach coming out as well at the other side and the sea coming in at the other corner, then it gives you that representation of the sea moving in and out, and also just the structure of the mountain itself will give some kind of structure to the frame. Now, square shapes or rectangular shapes can often represent order or structure to a frame. So imagine an architectural photograph of a building where it is very linear and cuboid. That will represent that sort of structured effect, which is all solid and organised. And then circles can often be quite relaxing shapes to look at. Imagine a photograph of flowers in a field, which often have quite a circular shape to them. We often associate that with summertime and warmth and just being nice and relaxed. In fact, you may think I throw these videos together, but if you look at the background behind me, although I'm doing my best to shelter from the rain underneath these trees, I've also used the greenery behind me to almost represent a circular shape to frame me and hopefully make you feel more relaxed as you're watching. Whether it's working or not, only you can decide that. You know, I think it might be stopping as that twig gets in my eye again. My next point in terms of observation is a bit of a left field one, but you've got to run with it because it's all about learning to see the world in black and white. Our cameras don't actually see the world in colour. The colour is something added digitally afterwards. So they see the world very much in that monochrome black and white, from white through the greys to black and the different tonal differences in between. And if we can train our eyes as we are walking through either a landscape or wherever it is that you're photographing to see those tonal differences rather than the differences in colour, then we start to see how different subjects stand out over each other. So for example, if you're walking through a landscape and everything's very green, then What we can do if we learn to look in black and white and see those tonal differences is see the different brightnesses and lightnesses and darknesses of those greens. So we can think, when we take that photograph, which of those areas are going to stand out more to the eye. It's often lighter areas, obviously, that come to the fore, and darker areas tend to go to the background when we look at pictures. So when you're walking around, look and see, well, is that tone of green lighter than that one? Therefore, if I take a photograph of this, I need that in my frame because that's going to stand out. And if that's darker, I can use that as my background, so whatever's in front of it will stand out.